Now, since the Princess of Wales announced that she's been diagnosed with cancer, there were close to 100,000 visits to the Macmillan Cancer Support Charity's website between the Friday, when that video was released, and then the Sunday evening. And that's the highest number of visits in 4 years.
A real positive outcome. And somebody knows all too well how a shock cancer diagnosis feels is Gabby here, Gabby Logan, whose husband Kenny was diagnosed with prostate cancer despite having absolutely no symptoms. We'll talk about that in a second. Glad to say he's been given the all clear, and now Gabby is raising awareness by putting on an apron for Stand Up to Cancer's Celebrity Bake Off. Let's have a quick look. Until I saw that clip, I was going to say it's not as easy as it looks, but it doesn't look easy.
I make it look very hard. My kids knew the deal very early on. I was not going to be the baking mum. You know, we can buy in the baked goods. I'm really lovely. I'm a really lovely cook. I'm a lovely cook. I mean, you can say that because you never eat my food. I love cooking, but baking is just so exact, isn't it? Yeah. You know, you just can't be a little bit creative with it. You have to be precise.
When you're in that kitchen, I always wonder how much is it real? Like, are you really thrown in and told to make an ice cream cake, not knowing anything about what to do? Or do you get instructions?
A bit of both. So you have 2 bakes that you know you're going to bake from 2 days out. And if you're a proper baker, you'd probably practice those, wouldn't you? Yeah. No.
Well, I tell you what, if you're a proper baker, you probably wouldn't need to practice, whereas if you're not a baker, Gabby, I would suggest you would have done.
Somebody said to me, just make a Victoria sponge the day before so you know how to do that. And then you have your surprise, you know, your showstopper. And the showstopper was the one that obviously was, that was always going to be tricky. And then you've got the one that is, you know, kind of thrown at you, literally. You open, you kind of turn the tea towel over and it's underneath. So, yeah. And add to all of this, they're making Deadpool, right, at the same time at the studio, where the studios are.
Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds?
Yes.
Deadpool.
And so Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively were walking past the tent, and then she came and sat in the back of the tent at one point because she loves...
The Americans love Bake Off.
Yeah. I mean, so it was the most surreal few days of my entire life.
And how was it linked to Stand Up to Cancer? What was the...
So it's all part of Channel 4's programming for Stand Up to Cancer. There's lots, so that, you know, so the show basically is a charity kind of organising. Yeah, everybody who does it for Stand Up to Cancer. And we had, you know, obviously a great laugh doing it, but there's also a serious side to it as well. And it was very timely for our family because it was a year almost to the week after my husband Kenny had had his prostate removed, having had prostate cancer, and was still going through the kind of every 2 to 3 month tests to make sure that there was no cancer in his, you know, in his blood and his markers. So I mean, we'd gone through a lot in that time.
Well, I said in the introduction there that he was discovered to have cancer, but he had no symptoms at all. So I'm guessing, what, he had a blood test for something else? And it
so he'd listened to an episode of my podcast, The Midpoint, with Davina McCall. He'd gone out for a dog walk and he came into my office and he said, listening to Davina talking about you guys, meaning women, and all your hormones, what happens to us blokes? And actually, I hadn't really had many men on who talked about that. So I said, just go and get yourself tested. I mean, I was trying to kind of get him out of the office, you know. And because he's an ex-sports person, he's not scared of doctors. Like a lot of men don't. So he just booked himself an appointment with a male health specialist, wanted a midlife check. And this doctor said to him, I wouldn't worry about your testosterone, mate. It's your PSA that you need to have a little think about. And he said, what's PSA? We hadn't heard those 3 letters before. And that is a marker, obviously, potentially for prostate cancer, PSA. But he had no symptoms. So I was very much of the kind of mindset, oh, well, you'll be fine. There's, you know, this is obviously... you know, not wrong. Or you're or you're in the safe kind of barriers and safe parameters. So it turned out to be that, you know, the markers weren't good and that he did have grade 3 Gleason. They have a different kind of scale for prostate cancer.
So properly developed.
Yeah, so his prostate needed to come out. That was, you know, one of the options, and he was advised that it should, which is a tough operation to go through, but he just felt enormously grateful that he'd found it because he knows that if you have symptoms, it can be too late with prostate cancer.
And the podcast that you and Kenny then did about prostate cancer, it is so helpful. And it has become your most downloaded podcast.
Yeah, of all the episodes. And I get told lots of, you know, doctors and medical professionals recommend it to people who are going through similar, and how people contact us all the time telling us they found great comfort in it, because we decided to just record a few little bits along the way along his journey and then after the operation. And, you know, he's very emotional at times on it because I think it just suddenly kind of hit him the night before what he was, you know, he said, I'm going into hospital and I haven't got any symptoms and I feel like I feel slightly fraudulent.
It's not real.
Yeah, it's not real. And it is. And I think it's, you know, it can be quite frightening then when you're in that medical environment and you're suddenly in a cancer hospital.
And you're both very, very frank. I mean, for example, you talk, I mean, a lot of people don't like to talk about this, but you do. You talk about the effect on your sex life.
Yeah.
Afterwards, because a lot of men worry about that.
Yeah.
Is it going to affect my performance?
I think that's the reason why it's quite squeamish for men to talk about. You know, one of the reasons is because the way that they find the prostate is through an entrance in the body that men sometimes don't want to be, you know, kind of investigated in. Yeah. And then the other thing is the outcome can be obviously affect erectile function, and you know, just even saying those words, you know, makes people feel
fear of God.
Yeah. And so we're very lucky, and you know, everything's good, but it takes time to get good. And you know, I wasn't always the most sympathetic.
He does say that in the podcast. Yeah.
I was kind of like, well, let's just move on then if this isn't working.
And you know, give you a chance. Just give you a bit of time.
Give it a bit of time, and that's not what you say to a man who's going through those things. I found out.
But that's what I mean. You're very frank. You're very open. I really admire you for that.
Oh, thank you.
I honestly thoroughly recommend it because just like with the Princess of Wales in the wake of that video, and lots of people then looking for information, finding it on the NHS, Cancer Research, Maggie's websites. Your podcast is a huge source of helpful information for anyone going through that.
Very kind of you. Thank you so
well, it's
much.
great to see you again, Gabby.
To see you.
Looking
and
great.
You too. Oh, lovely to see you both.
Thank you very much. And your final message for Wales tonight?
Oh, my gosh. I wasn't nervous until I listened to the radio on the way in, and then I suddenly started... Well, they do have Lewandowski. I mean, what was I thinking? We've got Brennan Johnson, but they've got one of the great players of all time. So, come on, Wales. Come on, Wales.
And a 50-year unbroken, undefeated record when it comes to Wales. Never mind. Tonight's
all right.
Gabby, all the best. Thanks very much indeed.